All right, everyone is hopping in. So exciting. Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh, so many beautiful faces. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We are right there at time. We're 3 minutes over time. So we are here for a cooking with cast iron class. And we wanted to do this because, I want to do this because I love cast iron. I love cooking with cast iron. And I love the memories I have around cast iron from when I was a kid as well. But I hear so many people that are nervous to cook with cast iron. They don't have any cast iron. Maybe they're curious, but they're too nervous. Or maybe you have cast iron, but it sits in your cupboard and it doesn't get used, right? Because you feel like it's too much work, or you're not sure how to take care of it. Or maybe you've tried to cook in it before and your food has stuck to the pan and you're like, well, that was a disaster. And so then you push it to the back of your cupboard and never use it again. And this to me is a tragedy because I love cast iron. And I know that with the right information, you can love cast iron as well. Or the opposite end of that, maybe you use cast iron all the time, you love it, and you just joined for the fun of it and to see if there was anything new that you might learn. So either side of that spectrum, welcome. We're so excited to have you. And we are going to have a couple of different people show something that they have made in one of their cast iron pans and talk a little bit about what it is and how they made it. And then they're going to share their favorite tip for cooking or taking care of cast iron. So first, we have Miss Carly Van Dyke is going to show us her delicious pizza. So go ahead and take it away, Carly.
Hey friends, as Katie mentioned, my name is Carly Van Dyke. I live in St. Clair, Michigan. If you didn't catch it from my accent already, I'm very nasal, but we all are out here in the Northwest. So first of all, I wanted to let you know that I am relatively new to using cast iron. I'm not one of those real seasoned professionals, people who have used it since the day they were born. I did grow up with cast iron in my household. My dad used cast iron for legit everything. I've never seen like noodles boiled in a cast iron skillet. I'm not sure he really had that one correct, but you know what? Props for trying. Like the guy would cook spaghetti in a cast iron skillet. I don't know. It's crazy. But so since starting using the cast iron, I have noticed so many ways to use it. And one of my favorite things before I share my little pizza and my recipe with you is cast iron. If you are not aware or have never used it, it is incredibly versatile. It's versatile and it lasts for generations. I mean, I still have cast iron pans in my kitchen that were hand-me-downs from like my husband's parents or my husband's grandparents, my parents, except for my dad, because he still cooks everything on cast iron. So but versatility. So you can use your cast iron on your stovetop. You can use it in your oven. You can use it under your broiler. These two are smaller and littler known, but you can use them on your outdoor grill. So if you want to grill a pizza, which is what I did today, you can use your cast iron right on your barbecue grill outside. And you can also use them over an open fire pit. So if you're out camping with the family and want to cook something over an open fire, they're perfect for that. And that's not something that you can say for all kinds of cookware. They're so versatile. So I'm going to show you what I made on my grill today. I got it out of the oven like 15 minutes ago and it's still kind of hot, but I didn't bring the hot pads down. So this is a margarita pizza. It is on you can see my cast iron pan here. This is actually like a skillet. It's not as much of a pan with like the sides on it, but it is a skillet. I can let you know it's called a margarita pizza, not like the margarita you drink with like with like I don't know, tacos or whatever. Margarita pizza is a really simple, delicious, easy recipe to make. There's really only a couple of ingredients. First of all, you're going to use whatever pizza dough you have. If you have a great family tradition of pizza doughs, you can use that. Or if you're like me, you can get the prepackaged stuff, go to the freezer section, give yourself a break, right? So you're going to need freezer pizza dough or any kind of pizza dough. You're going to need pizza sauce of your choosing. You can even make your own if you're like, you know, really into that. You Martha Stewart person, you. You're also going to need some block mozzarella cheese or the ball of mozzarella that you get in like the more fancy cheese aisle. I recommend not using the shreddable cheddar or shreddable cheese simply because it gives it's a different texture, and there's additives to that cheese that prevent caking, and essentially that's like sawdust, and it's not very nice. And then you're going to need some basil. So the biggest tip that I have for you when you're cooking on your cast iron, if you're cooking pizza on your cast iron, whether or not it's in your oven or on your grill outside, preheat your cast iron in your oven or your grill. You can preheat it according to your pizza making directions. Mine, the hotter the better. I preheated mine to 450 degrees. The reason you're going to preheat your cast iron pan is because when you're making pizza, it gives it an extra crispy crust. We all love the crispy crust. We don't like to pull up the pizza and then the one end like sags down and all that kind of, no, we ain't got time for that. So if your cast iron is preheated, slide that pizza dough right onto your hot cast iron. I par baked my crust today, so I put it without any toppings on it into the cast iron pan at 450 degrees for like 10-ish minutes, pulled it out and added my toppings. Then I put it back in for about 6 to 8 minutes, I would recommend, and you get this amazing pizza. Now, you can see the basil. The basil on top is sprinkled on afterwards because you don't want crunchy, like fried basil, even though that's a whole kind of mood right there. So preheating your cast iron on the stove or the grill will definitely help you get that sought after crispy crust. And one of the best things about the cast iron is the heat retention that you get. Along with stoneware and other kinds of heavier bakeware, cast iron, it heats evenly and it retains heat. As I mentioned, I pulled this out about 15 or 20 minutes ago. It's still warm. So if you're going up for like seconds or thirds, which of course you are because you're an amazing cook, right? When you go up for seconds and thirds, you are going to still have hot food coming back onto your table. It's not going to be cold and congealed. So cast iron is amazing also for heat retention. So those are my favorite things: the versatility, how many ways you can cook with it, the types of foods you can cook with it, and then of course the heat retention. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Carly. That was awesome. Your pizza looks delicious, by the way. All right, so now Teal is going to show us what she is making in her little mini cast iron pans that are so cute. So take it away, Teal.
Hey guys. So you might have seen me kind of fiddling around while Carly was talking because I was trying to get everything ready for you. Sorry, I'm getting all these text messages. Okay, so I am making for you guys in these little bitty skillets a s'mores. So this is some chocolate chips that I melted. You could always use like Hershey's bars or dark chocolate or whatever you want. But I heated it up on my stove so I could get the chocolate started and melty so I could show you guys. But then the original recipe, which happens to be on the Pampered Chef website, calls for like 40 marshmallows and a cup of chocolate chips, but really it's kind of, you can just put however much you want. So I put the chocolate chips to fill the bottom of the pan, and then I'm just going to put marshmallows on the top to cover it. And this is like a super yummy, easy dip. You could do this on the fire too. It's actually probably less messy than trying to do like an old-fashioned fire s'more, and there's a lot less chance of your marshmallow ending up in flames and all those things. You know, you could definitely do this over the fire too, but I'm going to put little marshmallows on the top, and then I'm going to stick this in the oven for like 2 minutes. I put it on low broil. So when I'm at home, I'm going to stick this in the oven. I'm going to broil it for a second, let the marshmallows get nice and gooey. If I was, out and about, or if I wanted, you could do it on your grill too. This is not going to work. Okay, let me get my heavier mitt for this. So I'm going to throw this in the oven for just a minute, and then I'm going to share with you guys what else you can do with it. So we'll just give that a couple seconds. So my favorite thing about cast iron, especially if you're using it for camping or for outdoor cooking, is how easy it is to clean. You don't even need soap. You don't really need water even. You can put salt on it. You can put a little paper towel. You can use it to scrub it if you have something that's extra stubborn. It's kind of like using a salt scrub or a sugar scrub on your hands or your face. Just exfoliate that thing. Just sprinkle some salt on it, scrub on it a little bit, and get whatever off that you need to. And then throw it back on the fire for a few minutes. Wipe the salt out, throw it back on the fire, put a couple drops of oil. You can use bacon fat if you want. You can use a little bit of butter. Take another paper towel or another cloth, wipe it down, like all the inside, all the outside. And that is how you pre-season your pan for the next time. So you can use water to wash it, but you don't want to use soap to wash them because that's just, you don't want to do it. So with the cost of groceries these days and dish soap included, how cool is it that you can have a dish that you don't have to use soap for? So let's see. I'm not there yet. I'm going to switch it to high boil. So I did 2 minutes, but 1 minute didn't really seem to do much. And I was thinking, if you wanted to make it like Mexican chocolate s'mores, you could sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on top of the chocolate too and make it like a little bit different. Or you could use cinnamon graham crackers. These are just regular ones, but graham crackers, you could use animal crackers. You could use, I don't know, you could use saltines if you like the salty sweet combo. Whatever you want to, but you could even make it like fancy and use 2 little skillets, or you could do it in a bigger one if you have a big crowd and have like all kinds of little cookies and different things to dip into it. So just a fun idea for you guys. Yep, they're getting toasty. Okay, let's see here. They're not super brown yet, but they puffed up a little bit. You guys. So there it is. Yum, yum, yum. So they're all nice and soft. So I'd probably go like 1 more minute for these, but the chocolate's all nice and melted. And ta-da! Yum, yum, yum. So that's what I got for you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Teal. I'm jealous. Now I'm like, you should have come over to my house to do this. All right, so next we have Marilee. Marilee made something extra special for us to see. So Marilee, go ahead and tell us about it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Marilee Tucker. I am from Carlsbad, New Mexico, south, I guess it's southeast New Mexico. And I made today a jalapeno cheddar cornbread. But what's special about this cornbread is it's completely keto and low carb, because my family likes to focus on low carb eating. So the way I made this cornbread is I did preheat my oven, and I preheated it to 350, and I put butter in the pan. And I put it in the pan and I put it in the oven while it was preheating. And then I went ahead and mixed my ingredients. And the ingredients that I used in this cornbread was I used 1.5 cups of almond flour and 1/2 cup of coconut flour, a half teaspoon of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 cup of melted butter, 4 large eggs, 1 cup shredded cheddar cheese, a cup of heavy cream. Usually you want to use heavy cream instead of milk, because milk has carbs in it too as well. And then 3 tablespoons of diced jalapenos. And then I topped it with a little bit of shredded cheddar cheese and some sliced jalapenos just to make it look pretty. And so that is what I made in the oven. And one of the things that I really like about cast iron, I know Carly had stated that it's universal, like you can cook with it anywhere. And I like the fact that it keeps your food warm. Actually, it's cornbread. I cooked it a little while ago and it's still pretty warm. Like like everybody said. I like the fact that you can use metal in it. And so I was gonna go ahead and cut into my cornbread and show you, because it is pre-seasoned when you purchase it. And because of the maintenance and care, you can use metal utensils. And I just cut my slice of cornbread out like so, and see how simple and easy and non-stick it was. It came out nice and clean. So I like that the cast iron does that. My first ever cast iron pan I had gotten from my parents, and it was not really well maintained, and it always burned everything. And so I was really intimidated by cast iron. And when I got cast iron with Pampered Chef, it was a completely different ballgame because of how non-stick it was. So, and then the cast iron also comes with care instructions on the pamphlet that they come with. And that's a good thing to go off of too when you're caring for your cast iron. But one thing you always want to make sure is you can use rubber scrapers. I love to use these to clean my cast iron. Use it under really, really hot water, and you just scrape your pan with really hot water. And then what I like to use is coconut oil, because in my house we like to use clean oils and healthier alternative oils. So I like to use coconut oil because you want to use a high burn temp oil to definitely make sure that you can maintain your cast iron. And after you wash it and the pan is a little wet, I usually put mine on a burner to kind of dry it. And then after it's dried and it's been on the burner for a while, that's when I take the oil and I use like a towel or a cloth of some sort and just kind of like rub it over the pan, and it keeps it that clean, maintained look. So that was one of the things that I really like about cast iron. And then let me see if there was anything else I forgot. I do know that when you get foods that are really stuck on, you can boil water. So like with Teal's s'mores skillet, you could boil water in the pan and try to remove some of the stuck on stuff that way. So that's what I have with cast iron. And I love that it's definitely, you can use it outdoors, indoors, in the oven, on the stove, and use it in different cook settings all at once. So yeah, so that's a little bit about what I did and the perks of why I like cast iron.
That's so cool. Thank you, Marilee. And I love that you did your cornbread keto. That's pretty unique. So there was so many good tips shared, and I realized after I kind of gave Carly the stage, I didn't even introduce myself. So you might be wondering who is this lady? So my name's Katie, and I live in Montana with my husband and our 3 kiddos. And I made a strawberry Gillette, I think is how you pronounce it. It is super easy. It is basically pie crust and some strawberries sliced up. You put some sugar and some cornstarch and some fresh basil leaves in with the strawberries, let it sit for a minute, put them all on the pie crust. And then you just fold up the pie crust on the edge. And you can see I did not do a good job of pinching the pie crust closed. So I have some juices that leaked out around the pan, which burned a little bit because they weren't inside the crust, right? But I have no worries about being able to clean the pan because there are so many good tips that were just shared. All of those things make it easier than you might think. So then after you put the strawberries and the basil in there, that mixture, you fold out the ends, you do an egg wash around the outside, and then sprinkle a little bit of sugar on the top, which also helped with the little bit of caramelization I got around it, the sugar. So this is the same kind of sizzle skillet that Carly shared with her pizza. This is really versatile. This shape and size, it's a little bit more flat, it's a little bit bigger. It works really well for on the grill. It works really well for stuff like this. And we did fajitas on it the other night. It was really good. There's also more traditional skillets, and you can see this is like a round with a handle, right? And there's the mini ones that Teal showed you. There's lots of little mini cast iron skillets you can get. There are different shapes and sizes and uses. You can get grilled pans, right, with the grill on the bottom, that are made with cast iron. These are specifically Pamper Chef's cast iron pans, and you can see the shape is a little bit different. It's not quite square, but it's not quite circle either. But it's basically a square with the corners circled off. So you can get something like that. Also, depending on the brand that you purchase, it could be pre-seasoned or it could not be. So make sure if you are looking at purchasing cast iron, when you're shopping around, you look and pay attention, is this pre-seasoned or not? And I wouldn't necessarily say don't buy a pan that isn't pre-seasoned, because it's really easy to season your cast iron, but you just want to be aware so that when you get it, you don't try to immediately use it and have everything stick like crazy because there's no seasoning on it. Whoops, I just kicked my stand. Sorry about that. So all the tips that were shared up to this point were really great. And so I was going to walk through the different ways that you could get a cast iron pan and how to then take care of it from there. So like I said, depending on the brand you get, if you're going to buy a brand new pan, it might be pre-seasoned, in which case you can take it out of the box and use it right away. It is seasoned. You don't have to worry about it. You can use it right away and then go from there. If you get a pan that is not seasoned, all that means is that it was not treated with the oil to give it that nonstick quality. And so you're going to get that and you're going to take it, you're going to basically, you're going to oil it. You're going to put a very thin layer of oil on it, and you're going to put it in the oven at 350 for about an hour. And what you want to do is you want to take the pan, you want to flip it upside down, and you're going to want to put a sheet pan or a cookie sheet or some tin foil or something down below that in case any of that oil drips down. You don't want it dripping in your oven, and let it bake for about an hour. That is going to help the oil seep into the pores of the pan, and it's going to help give it that nonstick quality. And another thing you're going to notice is the longer you use your cast iron, the more nonstick it gets. So I made the mistake as an adult. I did not have cast iron pans of my own until early 20s, and I think I got some cast iron pans from a garage sale. So that's another way you can get cast iron pans. You can get them used, you can get them passed down from your family. That's one thing I love about cast iron is how it will last pretty much forever. Even if somebody has it who doesn't care for it the right way, or it's not stored right, it gets all rusted, you can fix that, right? It can be fixed. It can then be used still on and on and on for years. So if you get a pan or you see a pan that somebody has and you're like, oh, this is a cast iron pan. It looks like, it's the perfect size. And but you're looking at it and you're like, man, it's all rusted. It's really easy to fix. You take it and you can take a steel wool scratching pan, scrubber, and just scrub all of that rust off. Use some water, use some soap. And I know Teal already said, don't use soap on your cast iron. You don't want to use soap on a regular basis because it will take that coating that you've been building up, the natural nonstick coating you've been building up, it will take that and strip it away. But you can use soap on a cast iron pan without ruining it. You just have to re-season it after. So to get all that rust off, you can use soap. You can use a steel wool scrubber pad, and scrub it all off. And then again, you just season it. Coat it with the oil. After you are done washing it, make sure you dry it completely. And like Marilee mentioned, drying it with heat is going to be your best bet to make sure that all of the moisture is off, all the water is gone, because if moisture gets left on it, it's cast iron. What's it going to do? It's going to rust. And then you have to start back at square one. So make sure you dry it completely and then put that oil on it again, stick it in the oven for 350 at about an hour, let it bake and let all that oil seep back into it. And then you're good to go and you're good to start using it. And like I said, the more you use it, the better it's going to be, the more nonstick it's going to be. So, whether you get it rusted old from somebody or whether you get it brand new, it will last you your whole life. It is super versatile, and you can pass it down for generations, to your kids, to their kids, to their kids, to their kids. I mean, how amazing is a family heirloom like cast iron, right? It's not just, you know, a box or a piece of jewelry or something. It's something that they really, truly are going to use, and they're going to use to cook food for their family and bring their family around the table and create those amazing memories. So all right, so then I wanted to mention washing the pan. After you're done using it, it is going to be easier to get stuff off if you can wipe it out when it's hot. Now be careful, don't burn your hand, right? But after you take your food out, while your pan is still warm, you can wipe it out and get most of the food out that way without having to even take it to the water with a scraper or a spatula to scrape it, or a sponge, or whatever you might be using. You can get most of it off if you do it while it's still warm. Just be careful, because like we mentioned, it holds the heat very well for a very long time. All right, but do not take a hot pan and take it straight to the water, because you are more than likely going to crack it that way, especially if you're taking a hot pan into cold water. That will cause it to crack, and we don't want that, right? So wait for it to cool before you take it to the water, and then you just take it and scrape it with a scraper like Marilee showed. You can use a sponge on it. You can really pretty much wash it with whatever you want to wash it with, whatever you want to help get the stuff off with, because this is not a nonstick pan. So you don't have to worry about scratching it. You don't have to worry about permanently ruining it with your abrasive sponge. I would say don't use like a steel wool pad on a pan that you are continuing to use. You can use that to get the rust off if you're getting an old pan, but if you use that on your current pan, you're going to scratch off that nonstick seasoning that you've been building up, which that buildup is gold. We want the buildup to stay. And so you can use pretty much whatever you want to scrape it off and then dry it really well. I like to do the same thing that Marilee said. You can put it on your stovetop, just warm it up until it's completely dry. You can also put it in a low oven and let it dry that way. But the heat really just ensures that you're getting all of the water off. There's no water that is seeping into it, and it's not going to rust. Once it's completely dry, a little bit of oil, wipe it in there, wipe it all around, let it sit and cool. I like to let it sit and cool after I put the oil on, and then I will take a paper towel and just wipe it out again to get any extra oil that might not have seeped down into the pores. Any oil that is sitting on the surface, especially after it's sat there for a minute, is not needed. It's extra oil, and if you leave that sitting on there when you store it, then you're going to end up with a sticky pan, which is not going to help you cook your food. Then it's going to stick to your food, right? So make sure you wipe any extra oil off and there's not oil pooled in your pan when you put it away. So let's talk about oil a little bit. Marilee mentioned this, which was great. You want to make sure you're using a high smoke point oil to coat your pans. If you try to use something like avocado oil. I know that is a really popular one because it's healthy and everybody has been using it. And I swear every recipe these days calls for avocado oil. That's great. I mean, olive oil, that's great. But you don't want to use that to coat your pan. You can use it to cook with, but not to coat your pan, because then you're going to end up with a pan that is smoking, and you're going to end up with a pan that isn't the nonstick quality is not as great with like olive oil or avocado oil, are those lower smoke point oils. So make sure you're using a higher smoke point oil, or like some canola oil is good. You could use like Teal mentioned, like some lard. Those are all fine. And you can play around with it a little bit, right? Because you're not going to break your pan, right? Unless you take a hot pan, put it in cold water. Okay, you're not going to break it. It's going to be fixable. Even if you're like, man, that was not the right oil to use, this is not working, you can fix it. You can wash it with some soap, get it all off, re-season it, and start again. It's like starting fresh with a brand new pan. So let me look at my notes here. All right. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover and what I wanted to say. I will say that, again, soap will not ruin your pan, but you do want to reseason it after you use soap on it, if for whatever reason you feel like you need to use soap on it. And practice. Practice makes perfect. You really just have to practice. When I very first got pans as an adult myself, I used them a couple times and things kept sticking. Things were not working quite the way that I thought it was going to. And I was like, well, this sucks. I was like, my dad always used cast iron pans. I have this funny memory of my dad as a kid. My job was dishes. I grew up with a single dad, so my job was most of the household chores because he didn't want to do them. So one of those was dishes. I had to do the dishes, and we didn't have a dishwasher, right? I was washing them by hand. But I was not allowed to touch the cast iron pans. He told me, you do not wash the cast iron pans. I will wash the cast iron pans, because he was scared to death I was going to use soap on him. And I was also not allowed to wash his coffee cup. So a funny little fact, he was convinced if I used soap in his coffee cup, his coffee was going to taste like soap, which who knows, maybe he's right. I don't drink coffee, so I don't really know. But he was very adamant. I don't touch his coffee cup. I don't touch the cast iron pans. So when I very first got my first cast iron pans, I was like, man, this is not working out very well. And I did read a article on cast iron, and it was from a company who makes cast iron pans. I believe it was from Lodge. And they said on that article, they said it's a myth that you can't use soap on your cast iron pans, which I know is true now. But there's a caveat that they should have put in there, that it needs to be reseasoned after you use soap. So I was washing my cast iron pans with soap after every use. I was not reseasoning them. I was, coating them with oil, but not putting them in the oven and actually reseasoning them. And so they were really sticky all the time. My food would stick to them, and it just wasn't working. So I pushed the cast iron pans to the back of the cupboard. I wasn't using them. I was using the non-stick. I was using whatever else, and I wasn't using the cast iron. And then when I pulled them back out, I thought, you know what? I'm just not going to use soap. I'm going to go back to the way my dad did it, and I'm not going to use soap in these, and we're going to see how it works. And it worked much better. It was like the first couple uses, there was a little bit of sticking, as there always is, but then that non-stick coating was able to start building up, and I was like, oh, this is nice. And now cast iron is my favorite thing to cook with. I have quite a collection. I also have quite a collection of enamel cast iron, which we're not really talking about enamel cast iron because that's something totally different, and it doesn't have as many kind of care instructions to it. But I will say, to kind of wrap us up here, that just do it. Just use it. If you're nervous, if you're scared, look up some articles or talk to some friends, look up some videos. There are lots of people who their entire social media channel is all about cooking with cast iron and how to care for cast iron. I've seen a few of those people on Instagram and on TikTok. So just do it. Just try it out and just practice. Right? Give yourself some grace, because if you don't usually cook with cast iron, or you've never cooked with cast iron, you're probably going to have some sticking, but give yourself some grace, and make sure you start with a hot pan. That was something I forgot to mention. That will help prevent the sticking. I know Carly mentioned the hot pan, but you always want to start with a hot pan and oil. So put the oil in your pan, heat them both up together. Okay. Don't splash your oil into a hot pan already. All right. Because that could be dangerous. But just get your pan with your oil hot before you put your food in. That's going to help it non-stick. That's going to help it not stick, I should say, because it's going to instantly help create a crust on your food. So even like with meat, for example, you put it in there and then don't touch it. Let it sit for a couple minutes. It's going to create that natural crust that is going to help it release from the pan when it's ready to flip, and it's going to help it not stick. So start with a hot pan and hot oil. Put your food in there, leave it alone for a minute or two so that it can build up a crust on the food, and then you can flip it or stir it or whatever you need to do. And second, you can cook anything in cast iron. You can cook anything in cast iron. Dessert, breakfast, lunch, dinner, vegetables, meat, really anything. And like Carly was talking about, you could even boil noodles in a cast iron skillet. Why not? All right, does anybody have any questions or comments before we hop off here? I know there was some stuff in the chat. Let me see. Yep. Okay. So Teal said the same thing. Yep. The best way to ensure no sticking is to wait to put the food in until it's hot. And then Teal, I answered the other question, right? If you have cast iron that hasn't been cared for, how to fix it. I think so. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions? You can throw it in the chat. You can unmute. All right. Well, if that's it, then we will call that an end. And hopefully this was worth your time this Saturday afternoon. And I hope you all pull out your old cast iron or purchase a cast iron pan and get started on it, using it, and just practice. Just practice. Practice makes perfect. That's the biggest thing. The more you use it, the better it gets. And the better you will get at using it, because then you'll have practice. And before you know it, you'll be a pro. All right, everyone, thanks so much for joining us. I hope you have an excellent rest of your weekend, and happy cooking.